Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on an exciting time. Tonight at midnight, the DAP application period will be opening. I am Ellen Truskowski, Director of Student Assignment, and I am joined tonight by...
Hi, I'm Kim V, Assistant Principal and Magnet Coordinator at John Hopkins Middle School.
Tonight we're just going to walk you through some of the things that we think you might want to know for the DAP application. So we'll go a little bit in depth onto what the different priorities are, as well as Kim will be taking you through step by step the application so you can see what every screen looks like, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about those common error times. So if you get an error or common issues that occur, we're going to kind of give you a heads up on what they might be, and then some solutions so that you're able to get through the application with ease. So we're going to just go ahead and start and talk a little bit about the fact that Pinellas County Schools is a district of choice. So in addition to some wonderful neighborhood opportunities, we also are able to offer 81 different magnet and fundamental programs. A magnet and fundamental program is considered part of our district application programs, which we sometimes refer to as DAP. So if you hear us say DAP, and we will be saying that a lot tonight, what it is referring to the district application programs, either magnet or fundamental program. So to be able to apply, we're going to show you tonight where to go. There are two kinds of programs. One is school-wide, so we have some programs that are 100% DAP, and then we have some that are considered program within a school. So that means we have several programs within a school. We're going to start off by talking a little bit about application areas, because when you go to apply, there are countywide programs, which are you could apply to no matter where you live in the county, and there's also application areas. So sometimes we have some programs that are limited based on either North County, South County, Mid-County, or something called a unique application area. They are defined by your address, and they are determined, your application area is actually determined by your zone school. For elementary and middle schools, that zone school is going to be whatever zoned middle school you're at. And for high school programs, that zoned is, your application area is going to be based on your zoned high school. If you are not sure what those zone schools are, we do have a school locator. So if you go to www.pcsb.org/zone, you'll enter in your address, and the zoned elementary, middle, and high school program will come. You can use the back of our DAP guide, which I have showing up on the slide, and the back of that DAP guide is going to kind of show you the elementary and middle school zoned, which of those zoned high schools are in each of the application areas. Those application areas are also located in the district application guide. So if you don't have that guide, you can download it. It is found on the right-hand side of www.pcsb.org/DAP. And when you download that guide, you'll see that there's a description of every single program that we have. There's also, if there's a feeder pattern program, and what application area will be in that. So we've highlighted a little bit on where to look if you do have that guide on where that application area is. Also, that last page, or the second to last page on page 19, will also kind of show with the key which programs have application areas and which are countywide. There are some programs, I'm not going to go into depth with all the programs. There are some programs that have entrance criteria. There's not a lot of them. There's only about 4 different categories of programs. The Centers for Gifted Studies, you need to either be determined to be gifted eligible, or you need to have an active EP or educational plan. Not the same thing as an IEP, but it's an educational plan. We also have the Centers for Literacy Innovation. So the Centers for Literacy Innovation require a screening process. So they're looking for specific reading patterns or problems with reading where the program will be shown to be able to be successful. So if you apply for one of the Centers for Literacy Innovation, you will get an invite to be screened. The Gibbs Center for Performing Arts also has an audition process. So if you do not audition or do not have something called a golden ticket, you will be determined ineligible. And then our high school ACE and IB programs also have some entry criteria. There's a little bit more of these. You can find them on any of the different programs' website, but they'll look at the courses, making sure that you have Algebra 1 honors, did you pass the Algebra 1 EOC, and some different test scores. If you are a private school or coming from a private school, we'll look at the norm reference tests that your child may have taken and looking for 8s, 9s, and 10s in the different reading and math categories. I do want to bring up with the ACE and IB, as well as the gifted, any of those programs that have entrance criteria. If you're coming from a private school or out of county, you're going to need to bring in the required documentation. So transcripts, test scores, EP or the gifted determination, you'll need to bring to the schools that you applied for and get it to the program coordinator. There's a review period. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But during that review period, we'll kind of look and to verify that you do meet that criteria. I talked a little bit about ineligibility. So the only ones for academic ineligibility are going to be those ones with criteria. So when you get to the acceptance period, and we're going to have another Facebook Live event that'll kind of go over that a little bit more in detail, but when you get to the acceptance period, you might see ineligible for two different reasons. One is academic, one is behavior. So the academic criteria means that you may have applied for a Center for Gifted Studies and not actually be eligible for gifted studies. And it's still okay if you do that. If you're in the middle of the process, once you be declared, we can get you back onto the wait list where you initially applied. But if you don't meet the criteria, you would be marked as academically ineligible. For secondary students, which is 6th grade through 12th grade, if you were applying, you might also be declared behaviorally ineligible. So that is where, for the past 2 semesters, so they'd be looking at January 2021 through December 2021, and looking to see, do you have 10 or more referrals, and or have you received assessor anytime during your school years? And that's just one of the more serious types of referrals. So they'll be looking for that. If that is the case, there's a review process there where we'll look at the different ones, and if determined, you would see behaviorally ineligible. So those are the 2 ways that you might be marked as ineligible to apply for specific programs. I'm going to talk a little about ranking and priorities, and then when we get to the screens during the application period, we'll kind of point out where those come into play. So you can choose from 1 program up to 5 programs, and it really does not matter if there's only 1 and you have your heart set on 1, or if there's 5 and you'd be fine to go to apply to any of the 5. It does not matter. Choosing 1 or choosing 5 is not going to make a difference. So you could apply for as few or as many up to 5 as you want. You rank from your first choice, your top ranked choice should be number 1, going down to up to 5. And I want to stress that priorities only apply for the entry grade level. So we're talking kindergarten, 6th grade, and 9th grade. And they only apply for the top ranked program. So once again, when we get to that part with Kim later on, when she's walking us through that application, it's really important if you want that feeder pattern priority. So you're at Elisa Nelson Center for Gifted Studies and you want Dunedin. You have to put Dunedin down as number 1 in order to get that feeder pattern priority. So the first rank, and that's really important, and that's something that people don't always understand when they apply. So just make sure that if you're hoping to get a feeder pattern or a sibling priority or a proximity priority or staff priority, that priority can only go to your number 1 choice. So you want to make sure that it is the correct choice that you put down for number 1. Now, I mentioned all those priorities, and you may be like, what is she talking about? So let me go a little bit more into depth about those different priorities. The first we're going to talk about is feeder pattern priority. So there's certain schools that have feeder pattern priorities, alignment, so to speak. So if, for example, you are at the Center for Innovation and Digital Learning at Gulf Beach's Elementary Magnet School, you can have a feeder pattern priority to the Center for Innovation and Digital Learning at Tyrone Middle School, but you have to put Tyrone down as the #1 chance or #1 selection. By doing that, you pretty much guarantee that you're getting into the school based off of that feeder pattern priority. All our fundamental programs have feeder priorities to the next fundamental level. And fundamentals are the only program that actually have a feeder pattern to high school. No other programs have a high school feeder pattern program. But our elementaries do have feeder pattern priorities to middle schools. In addition to feeder pattern, there's something called sibling priority. And this also gets a little confusing. So a sibling priority means that you already have a student in the school and that they're still going to be in that same school next year. So sibling priority doesn't apply to if you're applying for elementary and you have a current 5th grade student. So for the 21-22 school year, that 5th grade student's at the school. If you were to apply for sibling priority, you're not going to get it because next year your 5th grader is going to be a 6th grader at a different school. That does not count for our 2 K-8 programs, the Sanderlin IB World School and also Madeira Beach. That sibling priority will go for the middle school years, but they have to be at the same school in the same program the following school year. So our 5th graders, our 8th graders, and our 12th graders would not get a younger sibling that priority. You would have to choose that school or program in the case of high schools as your #1 ranked choice. Most sibling priorities only count for the individual program. We do have a couple exceptions for that. One is
John Hopkins.
John Hopkins. The other is Elisa Nelson's Elementary for the Center of Literacy Innovation, as well as the Center for Gifted Studies. Midtown Academy also does sibling priorities for both. Well, actually, there's several at Midtown. You have the Center for Cultural Arts, you have the Center for Gifted Studies, and you have the Center for Literacy Innovation. So the sibling priority would go for all 3 of those. And once again, just reiterate that they have to be in the same program the following school year. So both kids would have to be at that program for next year. Your 5th graders, your 8th graders, and your 12th graders would not be applied for any incoming younger siblings. The next priority is our professional courtesy priority. And professional courtesy is only for full-time employees at that school. So just because I work for the district doesn't mean I'm going to get a staff priority if I had children to go to any of the schools. I would have to work full-time at that particular school or in that program to be able to get a staff priority. And the last one that is applied during the initial application period is a proximity priority. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this because it is the most confusing, most frustrating priority there is. And when you learn about what we use and how it's determined, it gets even more complicated. So proximity priorities are looking at the distance between the school and your address. After the feeder pattern priorities and sibling priorities and staff priorities are given, there's a certain amount of available seats left after that. Feeder pattern or proximity priorities give a certain percentage of those seats and only to the entry grade levels. So proximity is only entry grade levels. It gives a certain percentage of those seats to the distances using something called the Manhattan distance formula. So, and they use it to the nearest 100th of a mile. So let me go a little bit more in depth into that. How do we determine it and what figures do we use for that formula? So the Manhattan distance formula can use different variables. What our county uses is the Pinellas County Property Appraiser or Atlas. So there is an address atlas, which issues every single address in this county a latitude and longitude value. It's the same system that our first responders 911 uses. So that longitude and latitude value for your address is entered into the Manhattan distance formula based off of the longitude and latitude assigned to the the location of the school. Once that determination, you get a value that to the nearest hundredth of Manhattan distance miles. Once there is a certain percentage, and I'm going to show an example to try to make it make a little bit more sense in a minute. So once we have the total available seats afterwards, we look at the proximity priority. So for elementary schools, 20% of the remaining available seats after the other priorities are given will go towards proximity. Same with middle school. High school is a little bit more, 25% of available seats after the other priorities are given go to the proximity. There are a couple exceptions. Tarpon Springs Fundamental, Eastlake Middle School, and Midtown Academy. Those three schools have a 50% proximity priority. So just to kind of show it up there. So elementary and middle are 20%, high school are 25% of the available seats for entry grade level. So we're talking kindergarten, we're talking 6th grade, and we're talking about 9th grade. So every year we get people calling and saying that they've applied every single year and they live close to the school. They should have gotten a proximity priority. So only that kindergarten, or in the cases of Center for Literacy Innovation or Center for Gifted Studies where the program starts at 1st grade, we would do proximity priority for that entry grade level of 1st grade. But it's only for the top ranked choice. So only the ones that you put down as number 1 when we talked about ranking, and then only in that entry grade level. So let's see what this looks like. Let's say that we have 100 available seats at a middle school. So we know that 20% of the available seats after those other priorities will go towards proximity. Let's say 25 of those were given for feeder pattern, 7 were siblings, and 3 were staff priorities. So we're left with 65 seats. So the proximity value is now going to be multiplied by that remaining seat. So if we're talking about a middle school, we're looking at 20%. So we multiply 65 by 20% and we get 13 seats. Those 13 seats are who the proximity priority is given. It is given to the smallest value, working its way up until those 13 seats are provided. It's not a radius. Every year we get calls, so it is not a radius. It is not a 2-mile radius. We have some proximity priorities that are less than 0.25 Manhattan distance miles. So it is looking at the smallest value, working its way up until the number of seats that's been allocated is given. So in the example that I'm showing here, 13 of those seats would go to proximity to 6th grade only, not 7th or 8th, because proximity is only for the entry grade level, and only for those who put number 1 down. 62 of the other seats are randomly selected names. I don't mean to imply that the rest is not randomly, so there is a randomizer for that lottery application. So anyone who applies, it goes into a computer-based randomizer, so the names and the applications are all mixed up when they apply with that. So now that I kind of talked a little bit about some of the more important factors or things I really thought were significant to know, I'm going to turn it over to Kim V, who's actually going to walk you through. We're going to show you the test site, but it's going to look the same exact way tomorrow, other than where it says test on top. It's going to be the site. So tomorrow when you go to log in, it's going to be https:/reservation.pcsb.org. And that's going to take you to the site, and I'm going to turn it over to Kim now to be able to walk you through so that you can see exactly what the application looks like, so you know what to expect if you're going to apply for a district application program.
Thank you so much. All right, before you even can begin the application process, just a reminder that you do need to have several things with you. First, you need to have your parent username and password. Parents, if you're like me and can't remember your password or have it in a special spot that you can't find, don't panic. You can call your child's school or go in person to any school that's closest to you to get a username and password if you don't have one, or to get Thank you. Or to get your password reset. It's very important that you have that because you can't do anything without it. You also need to make sure that your address information is updated because the address that you use for the application process is the address that is showing for your child in their Focus Portal account. And the last thing that you have to have is you have to know what schools of interest are there for your child so you know which programs to pick. So as Ellen mentioned earlier, we have our DAP guide on the website. Please make sure that you go there and decide on which schools you're applying for. Otherwise, you won't be able to finish your application, and you definitely want to be able to finish it once you start. So you go to the reservation system, and you're going to plug in your username and password. And everything's pretty self-explanatory, but because this is a very stressful time for us parents, I'm a parent too, we freak out and we forget. So when you're going through this process, I want you to make sure that you're taking your time and reading everything that's on the pages, especially the text that's in red ink. All right, so the first screen after you sign in, you're picking the option that applies to your child. In this example, I'm marking that my child has never attended a Pinellas County school. And that's because I'm making up a kid's name that's not in the system, okay? If your kid is already attending a Pinellas County school, you're going to select the second option.
And I'm going to jump in really quick because this is one area. If your child got gifted screened and maybe it's been in private, any kind of services or screenings that the county may have done, you're going to be in our system already or sometimes pre-registered. So when comes a point where it's going to be grade level and it's pre-registered, I'll kind of walk you through what that means. But if you've ever got screened, tested, or it's been years, but you were in our system at one point in time, you would put current or student or has previously attended. So you don't want to put the new student there.
Correct. Okay, and then the option, you'll have several options here, but you're looking at the district application program selection, and you're going to click that, and of course, we're applying for the 22-23 school year, so you're marking that, and you want to make sure you push continue. And I'm going to keep repeating push continue because you have to push that to save where you are, and that's going to be really important for the end. All right, so in this section, you are writing your kiddo's name. And no stalkers allowed. This is not my kiddo's name. This is mine. And I'm going to be putting her birthday. It's very important that when you're typing your child's name here is that you're using their legal name that's on their birth certificate. So if there's any hyphens, apostrophes, double first names or double last names, etc., you need to make sure that you're inputting it exactly the way it's on the birth certificate here. Otherwise, you're going to get error messages as we move along. Another thing that you can do if you don't want to input all of this information, you can search by the child's student ID number. And then if you were to go back, of course, you can search by the application number. Parents, you're not going to remember your student's ID number by heart. Your kid probably already knows it, but you can go online and using your parent portal, and they have their student ID near their name, and it also prints on progress reports and report cards. So you can type that as a way to search instead of inputting the name and birthday. Clicking continue, because that's important. And I'm verifying that this is my kiddo and this is the birth date. You want to make sure that this information is accurate. And then
if it is not, please contact the student assignment office and we will either fix the records that are in there. If you know it's a current student and the information doesn't pop up, check your spelling, check the date of birth. It's an easy mistake and easily to do if you're trying to get through that application.
So if this is wrong, my name and birthday is wrong, I would click the back button so you can go back and retype it. And parents, don't freak out. If you need help, the student assignment office number is right there on that screen for you. This looks like we've already completed this information, so you might get a little frustrated here, but it actually is having you select the gender of your child and putting the grade that you're applying. And it is noted in red here, so you do have to select it. Very important you note which grade your child is applying for. I'm going to be applying for 6th grade because my kiddo is going to be going into middle school. This is a required screen that you have to complete. They're looking at ethnicity and race data. The Florida Department of Education does require us to ask this. So you go ahead and select which option applies to you, and of course push continue. Now parents, some of you are experts at this part. Even though it explicitly says how you're supposed to type this page always messes with my head and I always get it wrong. But you're only putting your house number in the first box and then only the first 5 characters here. See, I went to type, already messed me up, and it stops you because I put a space and that counts as a character. So you have your house number and then the first part of your street name. And then it's going to give you choices if there's options. So I'm at 701 16th Street South, and I'm verifying that this is the one I want, and I'm selecting that. If my address is not appearing, you can push the back option and retype in your address because you may have inputted it incorrectly.
And I'm going to jump in one more time. If you just moved into a brand new apartment complex or a brand new house or something that was just built and just signed over, a lot of times that address has not been updated in our system yet. So if it comes up saying address not found, just give the student assignment office a call and we will be able to give you what we call a proxy address. So we will give you an address that will allow you to make the application, and then we make note of it during the mailing application screen that you'll get to in a couple minutes. So if it says address not found, it could be because you're in a new enough or newly constructed house, apartment, condo where it just isn't in our system yet. So just call the student assignment office and we'll be glad to help with that.
Side note, if you have any problems at all, call student assignment. They'll help you. All right, on the next screen, this is important because if you do have an apartment number, you need to make sure that you're inputting it in the address to line here. If you don't need to add anything, you do not have an apartment number, you can go ahead and just push continue to bypass this. So you're using apartment, condo, building number, unit number, etc. All right, this is a very important page. You can't go on without completing it. You're going to put your information, mom or dad. This is where you put your info. Oh, whoops. First name on one line, last name on the second line. Have to put your relationship. You have to claim them somehow. And then parents, you do want to give the most, or the best, I should say, phone number. I almost put my cell phone number on here. That would have been dangerous. Okay. I'm verifying that my address information is correct, and then you do have an opportunity here to add an additional parent or guardian that you would like to add. I'm going to say no because I want to know all the information and I want you to contact me, so I'm just going to push continue. Now this is a very important screen. This is where you're picking any priorities or when you're looking to see if what your options are. But if you have a priority preference or an option, you definitely want to make it here. So if I clicked yes here, for example, that I have a sibling priority, whoops, let me unclick it. You'll see if I have no, you can't type anything here, but if I click yes, it gives you an option to drop down what school your other child is attending, and it has all the schools listed. And then you also have to input, after you select the school that they're attending, you also have to input their student ID number. So if you don't have your student ID number, you're going to go to Portal and look it up from their account, or you can get it from their report card, and you would enter that here. For the sake of this application, I'm picking no, that I do not have a sibling priority. You can, you have, if your student's already attending a magnet, fundamental, or a career program, you can select that. Military preference does not apply during the initial application, so that's already going to be blacked out, so you cannot select that. And then if you are claiming for staff priority preference, you're going to input your information there. And then the other option is, do you have any multiple siblings for the same grade level? I forgot to check my options here. It won't let you go on if you don't select the options. Do you want to add anything, Frigga? Okay. All right, so once you get to this screen, this is where you're going to rank your school choices. Now, if you're really stressed out and you pick the elementary school setting, but your kid's really going to middle school, don't worry, because you can't click anything. So if you get to a screen and you can't click anything, that's because you're in the wrong screen. So just scroll down to the right level. Parents, I'm a hot mess parent, okay? So this is going to happen to me when I do it. But when you get to the right section to apply, you have all the different options that you're looking at. Now, because my kiddo goes to Midtown, I'm wanting them to get a feeder pattern priority, so I'm going to pick Johns Hopkins Center for Gifted because they're at Midtown Center for Gifted. So I'm going to select this school as my #1 priority because I'm looking for that feeder pattern priority. And then I'm going to pick up to 4 other programs, so I have a total of 5. Now, when you're looking down here, you will see, parents, that there's a drop-down menu for the ones that I can apply to, which means I'm eligible to apply. Based on my address, it won't let me select Largo, which means that's not in my application area. I cannot apply for there. So if it's blacked out, that means you can't select it for a ranking. So then I'm just going to go ahead and pick 5 options. I'm going to pick also Johns Hopkins for visual arts and for instrumental music. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm thinking I may want to go to Madeira Beach. I'm going to pick that as #4. And then for my 5th one, I'm going to try out Pinellas Virtual School. Actually, no, I don't want to do that. I want to try Sanderlin. All right. See how it let me change that? You can change it while you're in here as many times as you want. I want to pick 5 choices. You do not have to pick 5 choices. You can just pick 1 option. And then you want to go ahead and make sure you push continue. The next screen shows you everything that you picked in the order in which you ranked them. It also gives you contact information here so you know who to contact. If for some reason one of these options is not what you meant to select, you can go back. So you would push the back button and then you can rank your choices. And let me just show you what that looks like. You go to the middle school, it shows you your options. If you wanted to make a choice, you could do that and change it here. All right, if you say yes, these are the schools that I'm wanting to get into and that is the correct ranking that I'm wanting them to be in, you're selecting agree. And then these are a whole bunch of stipulations when you're applying. Talks about priority, talks about entrance criteria, talks about eligibility. Please make sure that you read that. Select this cute little box down here that says you understand and accept the stipulations and then push the continue button. Okay, parents, at the bottom, okay, first of all, this is going to, again, give you a page where you can print this so you can remember what programs you applied for. But most importantly, parents, at the bottom of this, it gives you an opportunity to provide contact information for us. This is what we're going to see in the application screen. So it's very important that you fill this out. And then if you would put an email. You have to push continue. It's very important. You're not complete. Oh, see how I just put X's and didn't put my numbers? It wouldn't let me go past that. Push continue. If you don't push continue, it doesn't save. You know you're done because at the end it will say you've completed your application. See, at the end it says you have successfully applied to a district program, application program, and of course we're asking for a survey. We would love for you to do that. Parents, when you're done, you can push exit. So tomorrow, there's going to be some of you that wake up at the butt crack of dawn to do your application. You're going to finish it. At the end of the night, you're going to want to go back and check what you applied for and or make a change because you talked to your kiddo. And so you can go back into the system and you can change your application rankings as many times as you want until the application process closes. However, it's very, very, very important, parents, that you remember to push continue and go to the very last screen, which is this one that says you've successfully completed your application. If you do not get to this screen, it will wipe your application away as if you've never applied. So please make sure if you do go back and make any changes that you see this screen at the end so you know that you're done.
Do you remember the birth date that you used?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so we're actually going to show you this because I really cannot stress this enough. There's two options when you sign back in. One's going to say review and print, and the other one's going to say hit continue. We have two pop-up messages to warn you that by hitting continue, you are deleting your choices. And every year we'll have parents who go in and think to check and hit continue, and they end up deleting their application, thinking because they have a confirmation from the first time they did it, thinking that, oh, I have an application number, it's set. But the minute you hit continue, it deletes your application. So we've got two different pop-ups before you can continue, just trying to warn you. But every year we have heartbroken families who think they applied and they didn't. So I really want you to see the screen so that you know what to expect.
So I used my parent username and password. I logged in. I'm going to go through the process. I selected I'm new to Pinellas County. I'm selecting district application, next school year. And then here I'm putting my kiddo's name, which I used my name. Let's see. January. So you put in what year, oh yeah. You put in everything that you did before. When you're going back in your application, you can put the name and birthday, or again, you can search by the student ID number. And then it's showing that I've applied. This is me for my kiddo.
So this is the screen I was talking about. And if you look, there's two options. If you click the one on the left, it's going to just pop up almost like that confirmation screen where you'll see your choices and you can print it out and have that copy. If you click continue,
which says change school choices,
you're going to get a pop-up that's saying if you continue, it's going to delete your application. And if you hit continue, you're going to get another pop-up. And you may think it's overboard, but like, just cannot stress enough that if you continue, you're going to delete that application. And even if you have that confirmation, and even if you have an application number, if you went ahead and delete it, there is nothing my department can do to help you when it comes to the acceptance period. So if we can show that you went back in and hit this screen, which we can, you've basically deleted any application that you might have.
So what happens when they get here to this screen where it says you're, oh, this is telling you your choices have already been deleted. Okay, yeah. So you can't go back from that point.
So just make sure you continue all the way to the end for that one.
And then you just go in and fill out this information. You want me to take them through to show our choice? Okay.
It's going to be the same exact thing where you go in and make your other choices with that. So just a couple other things that I didn't emphasize a lot when she was going through. With the address, it has to match, and she did stress, it has to match what's in focus. But where we get a lot of issues or complaints is you may have put in for the address change, you might have called my office for an address change. And we put the address change in, but you also have a second step to that. So you have to take two forms of address verification to the school. Only at that point, when they can verify the address, that will pull it in and it will change the address in the system. So if you just made the reservation thinking, okay, I put it in, I'm done, it's not complete. You'll still get that error message because it's not going to show that your address is thing. So from our view or the school's view, when they see it, they'll see pending. And what that pending tells us is that the address has not been verified yet. So it's not just enough to make that change. You have to bring that the address information into the school to get that address verified. with that. So we're going to take you a little bit back and go over a couple important dates and a couple other just things to know before we open it up for the questions. So that initial application period opens at 12:01 a.m. and every year we say it, every year we stress it. It does not matter if you apply at 12:01 a.m. tomorrow morning, or if you wait, and please don't wait till last minute, because if you have any kind of error or glitch, we are not going to be able to help you. Let's say you're applying at 4:30 on January 14th. It does not matter. Staying up and getting tired for tomorrow, it will not make a difference or increase your chances. That computer-based randomizer will randomize all those different applications throughout that application period. So it randomizes and mixes up the numbers every time someone else enters an application. So just some important dates, like I said, 12:01 a.m., January 5th, all the way through 5 p.m., and it will cut off at 5. If you are mid-process, it'll let you complete before shutting down, but if you sign in after 5, it will not allow you to make that application. My office will be open till 5 that day if people want to come in for assistance, as well as calling for assistance. So if you call us by 5, we will make sure that that application gets in for you. We are also offering, we're doubling the amount of parent application assistant nights, just trying to get in the community a little bit more to be able to help. So if you need an UMRA password and you can't get to the school during the school hours, we are going to be available at these schools or sites at the different times. So we're trying to vary the times too to make it a little bit more convenient. So we got some North County, some Mid County, and some South County places. We will have student assignment staff there. They'll be able to reset your password. If you don't have a parent account, they will give you a new account. And then if you need help applying, we'll be there to help with that with the application. There will be computers available and we will get that taken care of. So we're offering 6 different nights, and at any time, every school in our county should have a computer available, so you should be able to go into any school. Any school with a photo ID is going to get you a new parent account or be able to reset your parent account. They should have a computer for you to be able to apply if you're having that, or once again, we have those parent assistant nights. We have an initial acceptance period, so it's not just enough to apply. You have to go back in on February 7th to be able to see your results. And if you were given an offer, you need to respond to that offer or else it will go away. We're going to do another Facebook Live, YouTube Live event closer to the acceptance period, because I want you to fully understand, like tonight, what to expect when you go in, but also kind of what it means. And if you accept this program, you come off the wait list. So we want to make sure you fully understand the acceptance process as well. Then there's something called a newly invited sibling request, or an appeals week. And that will come the week after the acceptance, because you might have multiple siblings and one got in and the others didn't. So there is a week after the acceptance period where you can contact the school and say one got in and one didn't, and then you would get a newly invited sibling priority. Not going to go too much into that because that's going to be several weeks away, and I want you focusing on the application. And then we also have a late application period. With that, we're going to open it up to any of the questions that have been coming in, and hopefully get all your questions, concerns addressed, and be able to assist so you are ready and prepared to apply within the next week and a half.
How do homeschool students applying for programs with academic entrance criteria show eligibility?
That is a good question. So you will have a portfolio of work. If it is, and you may also, homeschool students can sign up and take the standardized tests through the school system. You would contact the homeschool office. If it is a matter of applying for the Center for Literacy Innovation or the Center for Gifted Study, you would have to go through that eligibility process. You can either start it off with a private doctor and screening or through the county, but you would have that gifted eligibility paperwork and you would bring that to the school.
If we don't get into a DAP program, How many schools can you apply through the SAR program?
Okay, so the question's coming in about something called a special assignment request. So the DAP is a special program, so it might be fundamental or magnet with a specialized program. The special assignment request is another way Pinellas County Schools offers families choice. So starting April, the initial application period starts April 1st and goes through April 15th. And the 1st through the 15th, that's called a special assignment request. So you are allowed to apply up to one school for a special assignment request, and can be a non-zoned, non-DAP school. So because you have to apply with DAP, any of the DAP programs are not part of the special assignment or assignment request. You could apply up to one program. We get a lot of times people will put down as a backup, so they may not have gotten an initial offer, and then they apply for an SAR in case they don't get an offer for the magnet. Before we grant any of those SARs, like it's also a computer random lottery, but when it gives us kind of like the ones it's randomly selected, if you have accepted a DAP seat, we're gonna reach out and contact you to find out if you accept the SAR, you're going to give up the DAP seat. So before we put it out, we will check to see if you want the DAP or if it's the SAR. So you can apply for up to one program or one school at that time. A little bit different. And the other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot in the beginning, and I apologize, we do allow out-of-county applicants, but they have to use the special attendance permit form. And by county policy, DAP seats go to our in-county residents first. So you can apply via special attendance permit, and that is found on the student assignment website about 2/3 of the way down, and it's www.pcsb.org/registration. But that special attendance permit will allow out-of-county people to apply. Seats first go to in-county residents, and in the summer, if you did an SAP, you will find out your results if you're being granted a seat at one of our DAP programs.
If my child had an IEP, would he already have a username then?
So the username is what you use to sign in for Focus or Porthole. So if you're already, it's usually P dot, indicating it's a parent account. So P as in Peter, dot, and it's usually like your last name and first couple initials. If you have one of those that you've used to sign in to check Focus, then you would have a parent account. If you do not, it's very easy. You just take a photo ID, bring it to any school, and they'll be able to issue an account. If you have not used that account within the last year, they will need to reset your password. So you would just, same thing, bring a photo ID into any school and they can reset the password and you'll be good to go. And because it doesn't matter when you apply, because of that randomizer, if it doesn't take care of the first couple days, you're still good and you still have just the same chance as anyone else.
Why aren't there academic criteria for admissions to more than just a few schools?
There is a national trend, and what we have seen is that students, when they're in a program that interests them, their attendance improves, their behavior, they get excited and more engaged in school. We want it to be an equitable opportunity for all families. So right now we only have select programs with entrance criteria due to some of the rigorous nature, or in the case of like the gifted centers, there are, Florida is very, more strict on some of the gifted definitions and gifted services. So we cannot offer full-time gifted services without that gifted eligibility. So minus those programs, we want all our students to be engaged and excited about school. So there are not entrance criteria for the majority of the programs.
Do student ID numbers transfer with them to a new school in the same county, or will there be a new student ID number at the new school?
Your number stays the same. So whatever they've got in kindergarten, that is their student number until they graduate.
Do we have the option to apply for both programs at Bogosiaga, or can we only pick one?
So you can apply for up to 5 programs total. So if you want 2 of those choices to be just at Boca Ciega, you can do that. If you want to apply for 1 of those programs at Boca Ciega and 4 others, you can do that as well. In some cases, some programs like Johns Hopkins, Gibbs, they have so many different opportunities that you could do all 5 at one school. So it is up to you. My only word of caution is you want to make sure that whatever programs you put down, you would want your child to attend. So if you're just putting something down to put it down, and you get an offer, you're possibly taking a seat from someone else. So make sure that whatever you put down is a school or program that you would want your child to attend.
Is FLVS a choice for elementary school?
So what the FLVS is referring to is the Florida Virtual System. So Florida FLVS is considered a separate district. So just like Pinellas County has a school district and Hillsborough County has a district, FLVS is considered its own district, and it's like almost like a state district. So you have to apply for FLVS separately. So you go to flvs.net. Now, if you're talking about Pinellas Virtual, which is a branch or a franchise of it, that is a Pinellas County school, and PVS is considered a DAP program. So if you want Pinellas Virtual School, you would apply using the district application program process.
What about the proximity priority? Is there a box to select that?
That is automatically calculated for every single person who applies. So every single person that applies, there's going to be a proximity value assigned. And then once that, so if you think back to the one slide where we talked about there were 65 remaining seats and 13 of those would go for proximity priority. So they're going to look at, after the feeder patterns and sibling and staff, they're going to look at the values of everyone else who applied. And those 13 seats will be filled starting from the smallest Manhattan distance formula up to the 13th, in the case of the example, seats of increasing value.
If you're applying for the Cambridge program at Tarpon Middle, can you apply separately for the Cambridge Academy for the Arts and the Academy Cambridge program, like as number 1 and number 2 choices?
Yes. So both Cambridge and Pinellas, or Tarpon Springs Middle and Pinellas Park Middle have the Cambridge Pre-ACE program, which is an international program just like IB, and just a little bit more flexibility in some aspects. So in Tarpon Springs, they have a music component as well. So some of the families really want the Cambridge program, but not necessarily the arts with it. So you can apply for both. If you apply for the Cambridge, it opens up the type of electives you can take. If you apply for the Cambridge program with the arts, then you would be getting, the electives would be an arts focused on that. But you can definitely apply to both of those programs.
Are we required to choose 5 schools, or can we only choose 1 or 2 we are interested in?
You are allowed to pick up to 5 options, but you do not have to. You can only pick 1 school if you would like, or 2 if you would like, but you are able to pick up to 5 if you would like those options.
If Tarpon Fundamental is a 50% proximity priority, does that give those outside proximity less of a chance? How do I find out if I'm within mileage?
So this is one area that, and I know it frustrates families because we will get calls on what are the chances, how many of this. We don't know how many sibling priorities there are going to be or claims until after the application period's over. So there are some years, like last year with, and I'm going to use a different fundamental program for an example, but Curtis Fundamental, it was like a bumper crop year for siblings. And there were so many sibling priorities that the amount of remaining seats available was small, so the percentage was small as far as proximity. So there are several variables, the other priorities that come into play. Not knowing at this point on how many siblings are going to apply or claim that priority, it's very hard to say how many seats that would equal to. Once the application period's over, then there's something called a review period, which is more of my office and all the schools, where we go and verify all those claims. Once we have a better idea on which of those priorities would be used, that's when the acceptance period comes off and offers. So really, we don't know or won't know until February, which I get because you're trying to figure out your best chances and to not be able to say, oh, it's this. The same thing with proximity priority. We've got some schools it's like 0.25, some schools it's 10 miles. Every year it varies based on who's applying and where they live. So there's no standard answer to be able to say, oh, it's about this. With that. And I know as a parent that's frustrating because you're really trying to get your best chances. But we don't know a lot of that until after the application period ends and we can verify those priority claims.
Other than the report card, where can I find my son's student number?
The student ID number? Is that what you're? The student ID number can also be found in their portal or Focus account where you can see their grades and email their teachers. Their student ID number will be in there.
Do we use the same parent login if we're applying for 2 children?
Yes.
We live in Pasco, but my child currently attends a Pinellas County charter school. Do I need a new special attendance permit prior to applying?
Yes. So you would do a new special attendance permit for the next grade level. So special attendance permits, which for those of you who are wondering, is if there's an out-of-county person who wants to attend our school, if we have available seats, we grant what we call a special attendance permit. They are good to the highest grade level of that school. So not just like the district, but to that school. So if you are in an elementary program with the SAP, you would need to fill out a new SAP for a middle school. Or same thing if you're in a middle school 8th grader and you're applying for an SAP for a high school program, it would have to be a new SAP application for that.
If my child never attended school in Pinellas, but we went through the gifted eligibility process with Pinellas, so he has an EP but never received services, do I choose current or new student on the first screen?
So you would choose, that's a great question, and it's one of the things I talked about if you had been screened before, or sometimes people will register and then decide to go a different route. Those students are already in our system. So you would choose, because it'll say current or previously attended, you want to choose one of those. If you need or want that number, you can always call the student assignment office, and we can look up the inactive number to be able to get you that student ID number that we will have in our system.
Do I need to register my kindergartner before I can apply for them? I have a parent login for my older child.
No. So you do not, DAP applications are not dependent on if you're already in one of our schools. So you do not need to be in a PCS school or registered for next year to be able to apply for DAP process. The SAR you do, and that's not till April, and we'll have a kind of an information session as well as on SARs when we get closer to that. The SAR application, you do need to be registered as a student, but for DAP you do not.
Is it possible to be accepted to more than one of your choices?
You can have offers for more than one choice, but you can only accept one. And when you accept one, you go off the wait list of any other programs. And we'll go more in depth into that. If you're choosing the 5 most popular programs, the likelihood of getting more than one offer is going to be very small. If you're choosing Madeira Beach and Pasadena Fundamental and a couple other of those, Jamerson and Sanderlin, the ones where we have a lot of people applying for those seats, because of the sheer amount of people applying, the likelihood of getting more than one offer is going to be small. But if you're applying for programs like that or may not get as many applicants, we definitely have people who get more than one offer, and then they would choose which one to accept. And we'll, like I said, with the application or acceptance period, we'll go a little bit more in depth, but you could change your mind the same way you could change your mind with the application period, you could change your mind with the acceptance. So whatever that is last entered will be what goes into the system.
My child attends a Pinellas County charter school. I have a parent account, but his current school does not use Focus. Will this affect the application?
It'll affect the application if you moved and the address and Focus is not correct. All you need to do is call student assignment at 727-588-6900 6210, we can make an address change, and then you just take that verification to the charter school. While they may not use it for the grades or for that, you are in our system in Focus. So they can verify the address in Focus and at least get that updated so that the address is matched and you can apply.
For siblings applying for different grades, is there an option to click for that?
So in the sibling priority, you would just click off the sibling priority. If they're both new students, that won't register right now. If it's multiple grade levels, that's kind of where that newly invited sibling priority, it was on the important date screen. That week is where if one gets in and the other doesn't, you can claim it. And what it will do is that the sibling that didn't get in, it kind of pushes them to the top of the wait list. So while it's not a guaranteed spot, it does give you a better chance of the other student getting in. Because those wait list offers, just because you don't get in first round doesn't mean you're out of the chances. Schools can make offers all the way up to January to March of the following school year. So you may not get an initial offer, you may not get it in the summer, it may be the start of the school year, a seat opens, the school will call in numerical order off the wait list and give you an offer. You can always accept or decline at that time, but there's still a chance, even after that initial application period, to be able to get accepted.
So Ellen, just to clarify, if parents have two kiddos going to they're applying for the same school, for example, they're both entering sixth grade, they would need to complete an application for each child.
Correct.
Okay.
So each kiddo needs an application made for them.
Can you confirm whether staff priority is only available for entry grades K, 6, and 9?
So priorities are for those entry grade levels. But then there's, yes.
My child has never attended a Pinellas County school. Will be starting kindergarten in the fall. How do they get added to my Focus account?
Okay, so once you have registered, so whether you apply for DAP, get in and register, or maybe you're going to visit one of our Ready Set Kindergarten events next week and you go ahead and make your reservation there. Once you enroll, so that is you bring all the paperwork, required documentations to the school. Once you are fully enrolled at that school, they will issue you a parent account, and since you applied, you will have one already, but they can link that child to the parent account. That has to happen at the school once you're fully enrolled.
Can a gifted magnet program be selected on an SAR?
Any DAP program, so fundamental and magnet, are not part of the SAR program because there's already a separate application. So SARs are only like other zone schools that are not your zone school. So for example, if I attend Northwest Elementary School and maybe I work up closer to Starkey Elementary School, I can apply for an SAR. I have to provide my own transportation, but if I get an offer, then my child can attend Starkey. So I can't apply for an SAR for any DAP program because there's already a separate application for that. So anything that you had to apply for DAP is not eligible for an SAR. SAR can be eligible, let's say, Eastlake High School. They have the engineering program. You can apply for an SAR for the traditional side of the school. So the SAR can be applied for, but for the traditional side of the school. So the Centers for Gifted Study would be the DAP program, but if it's at a school like Fitzgerald or Dunedin Highlands middle schools, where there's a traditional side to the school and that Center for Gifted Study is a program within the school, you can apply for an SAR for the traditional side. You'll get the part-time gifted services, but that is a way to get at a school that has a traditional side as well.
If for any reason you don't get into the school of your choice initially, do you remain on the list for the school you were applying for, or something you have to reapply to remain on the wait list?
So if you do not get offered a seat, you do remain on the wait list. And like Ellen said previously, you may not get an offer right away, but as seats open up, the schools work through their wait list, and you could get offered a seat in July or September and so on. So you do not have to reapply to be on the wait list. You automatically stay on the wait list. And since we're talking about applying, parents, if you're currently in a magnet program, and let's say you're in 6th grade and you're in a magnet program and you want to stay there, you do not have to reapply because you've applied, you've accepted that seat, and that is good for the entire time that you're attending that school.
Yeah, and that's really important because that's one of the biggest complaints we get is they apply year after year and they don't get in.
You're already there.
Right.
You don't have to apply.
So I am a parent who didn't get in that entry level. The entry level grade levels, kindergarten, 6th grade, and 9th grade are the grade levels that have available seats. Once you're in a program, you're in till the highest grade level until you decide you don't want to be there. So maybe you move, maybe you decide that you want to do the zone school because it's closer. When you leave, then seats open up in other grade levels, and then schools will call from the wait list. It is very rare for any other grade level, except for maybe 4th grade in some elementary schools because the class size gets a little bit bigger. But it's rare for other grade levels other than those entry levels to have seats. So if you're applying for 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 8th, 10th or 11th and 12th in fundamental high schools, there are not always seats available. So it seems like you're applying year after year and not getting in, but it has to do with that once you're in, you don't have to reapply, and so seats are only available other grade levels when families choose to leave.
I have the Focus portal and my login, but there is nothing in there that shows my child. Should there be info on my child in that account too? And if so, how do I enter it?
So the answer is it depends. If your child is registered and attending a Pinellas County public school, so non-charter school, and you do not see child information in there, you want to go to your school and you can ask them to attach your child to your parent account. If you are not all charter schools use Focus, so if you're signing into that porthole and not seeing your child's information, that could be based off of how the charter school runs it. And then if you have a parent portal because maybe you're private or homeschool and you've applied in the past, you wouldn't have a child attached there because there aren't grades, it wouldn't be at a school. But if your child's attending one of our schools and you want them attached, you just have to go. It's usually the data management technicians, your DMT at the school, and they should be able to attach your child to your Focus account.
Can you please explain the SAR process?
So very similar to what we just showed you. You would go to the same site, reservation.pcsb.org. You would go in. Once April 1st comes, you'll see a line. There'll be a new tab saying special assignment request. You would click that, and then it'll take you through not as many steps, but it'll take you through some different steps. You'd make your selection. Same idea, computer-based lottery, randomly selected. Those offers go out, and then the same thing. They're just automatically granted unless we hear back from you saying that you do not wish to get it. We will call, like I said before, if people have accepted a DAP seat. We don't want them to lose that DAP seat if that's what they really wanted, because that SAR will override it. Just like we did today with the application thing, we will have another Facebook Live event sometime in later March, closer to that application period, so you know exactly what to expect and what everything means.
Do we complete 2 separate applications if neither child is in a DAP, one going into kindergarten other than the first?
Yes. You have to, as long as they're not in the programs and you want to stay in the same program, you have to complete an application for each child.
If we don't get into our school of choice, do we then have to go in and apply for the school we are zoned for?
You do not have to apply for your zoned school. So you're already assigned to attend your zoned school. So if you do not accept a seat that was offered to you, or you do not get a seat offered to you, you would automatically be assigned to your zoned school.
And that is true for middle school and high school. If you are a new kindergarten student, you're going to have to make a reservation for your zone school and go in and enroll.
My student attends Pinellas County Charter School. Where do I find their student ID number?
Your charter school will have it. If it's not on the report card, you just have to contact your charter school and they will have that number.
How do I know which programs are more or less popular?
Good question.
It changes every year, and it depends on students' interest. I would even say that there's a lot of programs that I feel get overlooked that are amazing and awesome, but people listen to other people's reputations. But when you actually go and visit the school, what they're doing there is fantastic. And just because a program is popular doesn't mean it's the right fit for your child. Typically, and I can only go off of historically, I've been here this will be my 4th application period. Fundamental programs tend to be pretty popular. And then some of the 100% DAP programs, so Sanderlin, Jamerson, tend to be a little bit popular. Thorogood Marshall tends to be 100% with that. And every other year, it really depends. Like what was popular one year may not be as the next. The same thing where people calling asking for chances or what percentage were offered. Every year it changes. So it's really hard to say that. But typically the fundamental programs tend to be a little bit more popular, as well as the K-8 programs. Other than that, every year it changes.
If we apply for the DAP and attend Ready Set Kindergarten at our zone school, does that cancel the DAP application?
No, 2 totally different processes and systems. So you can go ahead, make the reservation, enroll at your zone school with the Ready Set Kindergarten, and it will have no impact whatsoever on the DAP program.
My daughter has an IEP. Is there a different application process for her?
No. And this also brings up, so I'm going to piggyback off of the comment. So if they are a current Pinellas County student, we will have access to the IEP. So if they're in one of our public schools, we can look that up because we want to ensure that we can accommodate all the different accommodations stipulated in the IEP. What is different? And one of the stipulations on that one page that Kim showed you when we were walking through the application is, what is different with some IEPs is transportation. So transportation is arterial for the magnet programs that offer it, and then the high school fundamental programs, which means it runs on some of the main roads and has limited stops. So it may not be as close as a traditional bus stop, but it is offered, but it's arterial. And because of that, the curb-to-curb transportation is not offered. So if you currently have an IEP for curb-to-curb and you accept a DAP application, they're going to reevaluate and change that IEP. So arterial transportation is the only type of transportation that is offered for any of the DAP programs. They will do curb-to-curb transportation to the zone school with that. If you are currently homeschooled or in a private school or new to the county and you have an IEP, we don't have records or access for that. So we would ask, much like the same with the gifted paperwork or any of the transcripts for the high school ACE or IB programs, to please get that to the schools that you applied to. And so they could take a look. We want to make sure you have a self-contained class. That program has self-contained class. So we just want to make sure that we can meet and make sure things are in place to meet those accommodations with that. So it's not a separate application process, but we will review it. And a lot of times they'll give you a call to make sure and talk about the program and what's set up and how we can meet those accommodations.
If I already have requested a parent login and have that, but the address on my license is different as I recently moved. Do I need to update this before applying?
It would,
No, sorry.
I was going to say, it would depend, the address that you use for the application is the address that's on file with the student. So if you haven't changed your license to your new address, well, if you've changed your address, what you need to do is you need to call and put in the reservation system to change your address and go to your child's school and provide two address verifications, so then they can make sure everything is updated, so you're using the most updated and correct address for the application. That's very, very important.
So if you have a parent application but you don't have a child in the school, a little bit different. So she gave a scenario where if your address changed and you have a current student and there's an address in focus, your parent account address is not the focus address. So the parent account, the photo ID is one, so we can verify that the person coming in for access to educational information is the person who's there. We can verify that you are on the account, and then we actually look at the number and expiration date more so than the address. So the address isn't really a part of the parent account. Once you enroll a student, the address is in focus. That's, as Kim said, that's the important address.
Can an application be submitted without being registered for a locally zoned school? My son will be entering kindergarten, but registration will not begin until next week.
Yeah, you do not have to be a current student to apply for a DAP program. You do have to be a Pinellas County resident. So to use the student reservation system, you do have to be a Pinellas County resident. If you're not, you have to do the special attendance permit, which can be found on that pcsb.org/registration website, about 2/3 of the way down.
And the first step on the application process after you sign in, you're selecting the option, my child is currently or has previously attended a Pinellas County school, or my child is new to Pinellas County and has never attended a school.
Ellen, there are no further questions.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you good luck. If you stumble or have any questions, we have those different parent and family application assistance nights all over the county. Please join us there. You can go into any school. You can come to the student assignment office. We will do everything possible to make sure it is an easy process, and we wish you luck in your application. And once again, it doesn't matter. So you don't have to stay up to midnight tonight to apply. You can apply from midnight tonight all the way up until 5 p.m. on January 14th. Once again, thank you for joining us, and best wishes.